Going to another midweek. Welcome to the channel, not early morning. Welcome to the mid-afternoon show. I guess that's what we'll call this thing. I try to record this obviously before I head out on the road. So I have some more albums. Ones that I had, I lost, and I've brought back in. There were nothing out there really strange, but yet some good albums and some good stories. At least I think they're good stories, or this is music that means a lot to me. So we're going to show that, okay? I mean, because it means a lot to me. And we'll start off with, actually this just came in today, the Velvet Underground. This is their third album. And so the third album they decided just to call the very original title of the Velvet Underground. Now, I got into the Velvet Underground in the mid-'80s. There was a record store in Cedar Falls, Iowa. I was living in Waterloo, Iowa at the time. And I got to know the people because obviously I was buying a lot of records by then. And I would go in not knowing a lot about music. I'm in my mid-20s, but I've really only connected with one person my whole life that really knew a lot about music. And we'll talk about one of those albums here in just a bit. And so I was always going to the record store, and I'd ask the owner, who was a very nice lady, quite attractive, and I would ask the gentleman that worked there, and he was just so helpful to me. And I says, "What do I need to get?" He goes, "You need the Velvet Underground." And after I listened to the first one, I think it was Velvet Underground and Nico, and I bought it all, and I became a really big fan. This one's their third album. What makes this one really interesting is this is the first one without John Cale. Lou Reed didn't like John Cale. He was just, they were always at each other. But Sterling Morris and Maureen Tucker, they liked John Cale, and they thought he added a lot to it. Well, Reed wanted him gone. The thing is, Reed wouldn't tell him, "I don't like you, you're out of the group." So he made Sterling Morris go over to Cale's house and tell him, "You're no longer in the band." Sterling Morris, the man that likes John Cale. He did it. He was bitter many, many years with Reed for making him do that. I mean, he was so upset about this. Cale left, nicely. So they bring in Doug Yule. Doug Yule is a 21-year-old, I think a group called Glass Menagerie, I think. He played bass and played organ, and so he was brought into the Velvet Underground, and you can just barely see him right there, and asked to play. So they went out to California to do this album, and they got put up there. The record company gave them first-class tickets and everything to get there. Supposedly, Reed said when they got there, all of their special effects were gone. So they had nothing. So there's no feedback on this. There's no weird distortion happening. It's a quiet album. And it's very listenable. So someone says, "Man, Velvet Underground's a lot of racket." This one is extremely listenable. There's only one called Murder Mystery that's really different because two different people are singing at the same time, totally different lyrics. It makes it interesting. But so they played this with no special effects or anything. After it was done, Reed snuck back into the studio and remixed it and bringing his vocals up higher because he was afraid that he was being washed out too much. Doug Yule sings a couple tracks on here because Reed's voice was going, and so he was having a hard time singing, so Doug Yule took over some vocals, which made their manager, Sesnick, go, hey, this guy sounds just like Reed. And Yule did sound similar to Lou Reed. And eventually Doug Yule became the lead singer when Reed left of the Velvet Underground. He was also dressing a lot like him. So this came out, no fanfare, nothing happened, and it sank. But the songs on here are quiet, and they're quite beautiful. I mean, this is such a highly listenable album. Really good stuff. If you want to get a feel for a Velvet Underground and ease in, Velvet Underground, their third album, really good. And so that album meant a lot. Okay, I talked about the guy that got me into the first guy I really knew, Jeff Bigelow. He's the man that told me my record collection sucked. Now, I've told that story a number of times. One of the albums he brought over for me to listen to was Stiff Little Finger. inflammable materials, and these guys are out of Belfast. And this is just adrenaline fueled, crazed punk. The man's voice sounds like he gargled on acid. It's like marble. It's rough, it's raspy, and he just screams with some power. This to me is what punk is about. It's angry. It's in your face. It's coming at you. It's very political. It's 70s, right? They're in Belfast. How could it not be political? And so when my buddy put this on, it's probably, I believe, 1982, and I heard this, my wife goes, "What are you turn that off, turn that off." That immediately said, this has got to be great. It's annoying my wife. How could I not want this? You know, we're living in a one-bedroom apartment, so now she gets to hear it all the time. I didn't have the album. I taped it from him, and I had a tape for many years till I could get a CD. I have never found a copy, an original of this ever. Well, the mailman just delivered another record album. Had to go get that. Pretty cool, huh? Probably not so cool. There's a lot of records. So this is a reissue. I'd love to get an original. I have never seen one in the U.S., an original, where I've been. I can order it through Discogs from Europe. Shipping is nuts, so I'll just get this nice reissue. One of my top 5 punk albums of all time. Top 5. It is that good. Let's see, where do I want to throw that right there? Just picked this up. U2, War. I loved this album when it came out. It was amazing. It was just so... It was different. You know, it's kind of refreshing when you think about what was going on. What year? This was came out in 83. So you had all the synth pop going on and all the new wave. And then this thing comes. And it's like, wow, what is that? And what really caught my attention is the video. Now, MTV was already up and going. But to have MTV, you had to have cable television. I didn't have cable. That was an expense. You know, I'm just out of college, just married. We're trying to make our way through. I'm not going to spend a bunch of money for cable TV. And the only thing I wanted cable TV for was for MTV. Well, eventually some of the videos began making it onto the major networks, and I would see them, and I would videotape them. Man, I had so many videotapes of these, of the different... Of the different videos that bands were putting out. But this one here where they were marching in cold, it was cold, it was winter, all the snow, and they had this drum. Man, it was great. New Year's Day, and then Sunday, Bloody Sunday. It was just such an impactful album for me. It made me a fan of U2. I really like U2. Their last few albums have not connected with me. All That You Can Leave Behind really was the last one that I really, which is my all-time favorite U2. But this would be one of my favorites. And so, you know, it's inexpensive. It doesn't cost a whole lot. And this was just a beautiful copy of it where I can now, you know, I only need a few U2 albums. I have Achtung Baby. I have this. I have All That You Can Leave Behind. I would like to get Joshua Tree. Those are the main ones that I have to have back. Anything else, it's not as essential. So great to bring this back in. But it got me into trying to get into MTV. Eventually I got cable television so I could have my MTV. And now it's just MTV's crap. But you know that. Okay. Just brought these in off of Discogs. I've been looking in the record stores and I haven't been able to find them. I love Grace Jones. I think Grace Jones she made some of the best music ever out of 3 albums. When Grace Jones first started, she was disco. And she did like 3 disco albums in the 70s. And the gay discos, absolutely love Grace Jones. She was it. But she saw where disco was heading, and her albums weren't doing that much, so we needed to change directions. So her fourth album, I believe it was her fourth, was called Warm Leatherette, which was a song from someone. Now I can't think of the name, but she just did this incredible version of it. Then she came out with the next one. I believe this was next, and this was in, you're looking for the date here, looking for the date. Well, I can't find it. Night Clubbing. And on here we have Walking in the Rain. She does Bill Withers' Use Me. Oh my God, she does a great thing. Demolition Man. That was written by Sting from the Police. Wrote it for her. Police later recorded it. I've Seen the Face Before, the Libertango. That's Astor Pastorello. It's tango music. It's just, what a wonderful album. There's a lot of remakes. Pull Up the Bumper. Those were her lyrics. And then there was this one here she did, and it's Living My Life. And on here you have My Jamaican Guy. Nipple to the Bottle was another absolutely outstanding song. So, I mean, it was just... I'm trying to think where I even first heard Grace Jones. It had to be on the radio. And I really think the first song I ever really heard from her was Night Clubbing. And she just had this reggae beat. But she was a diva. There was a show, she was on a talk show in Britain, and they were talking to her, and then the host went and began to talk to the other guests. She gets pissed off, stands up, slaps the host right then and there because he was ignoring Miss Grace Jones. Now, there's many episodes of Grace Jones just having meltdowns in public because she is not being catered to properly. I mean, she's not an easy person. God bless. She's married to Ralph Lorgren. Remember that big, I think it was a German actor, Ralph Lorgren. Did all these action movies, couldn't act, but a good-looking blonde guy. Well, she was married to him, probably with some other people, but again, these images on these albums are iconic. They were done through the computer, kind of cut up to make her look, just this mean, kind of ferocious woman. Her vocals, if you don't know her vocals, man, there's no vocal range. She kind of sings, talks, and very much, because Sly Dunbar was doing these, very much a reggae feel to her albums. But if there's three Grace Jones, the first one, Warm Leatherette, is the one I need. Night Clubbing is number 2. Living My Life is number 3 in my book on Grace Jones. If you have those 3, you have the very best of Grace Jones. Some of her other albums, there's good stuff, but these are just so solid, so reggae feeling, but not reggae. It's still new wave dance. And I mean, there's definite new wave going on in here, but very much for still clubs. Awesome stuff. Really happy. I got these through Discogs from a couple different vendors. I just had to have them back. I mean, when you think about everything, the albums that you really, really want, and that I'm trying to chase, these were two of them, and they're fairly inexpensive. But Warm Leatherette, that one costs a little bit more, but I'll get that eventually. MTV again. Psychedelic Furs. I just picked this up. It just came up for sale in my local record store. I had a lot of Psychedelic Furs. That was one of those groups, again, MTV group. I don't know how big they would have been without MTV. How many groups would that be? Would Duran Duran have been as popular if it wasn't for MTV? I don't think so, but maybe they might have. Here's another group. This was so much, the videos were so good. This is not their best album. This came out in '87. They'd had a few of their earlier ones, like Ghost in You, I believe, were very good. This one had Heartbreak Beat on it, which I really like. I mean, it's a very good Psychedelic Furs. I kind of think one of the greatest hits had served me with the Psychedelic Furs, but it's a group that I don't mind getting a couple of their albums back in. It's just those memories that I have. I don't got a specific memory on this. I just remember, pulling on MTV and there's the Psychedelic Furs. That's pretty cool, and it's a neat name. And Psychedelic Furs, where's that come from? Venus and Furs, which is from the very first Velvet Underground album. So it all kind of flows back to the Velvet Underground. And look at the cool leather, and I'm sure they look back and go, damn, we dressed really well in those days. 80s country music. Remember 80s country music? If you don't, that's okay. There's a lot of crap. It's a really... God, in the 70s it began losing its edge. In the 80s it really did. And along comes Dwight Yoakam. I had no interest in country music. I did like some Hank Williams. I mean, of all things. And I listened a little bit. Johnny Cash I was starting to listen to in the 80s, but overall wasn't a Johnny Cash fan. And then Dwight Yoakam came. And the way it was that Bakersfield sound that I didn't know about. I knew who Buck Owens was. Buck Owens was hee-haw. That's what I knew of Buck Owens. I hated hee-haw. I mean, I just thought, and I'm living in Nebraska, and there's a bunch of hee-haw fans there. And I'm going, oh my God, this is just, it's corny humor. That's a hee-haw joke. Where, oh, where are you tonight? Why did you leave me here all alone? I searched the world over and thought I found true love. You found another and you was gone. That's what I remember from Hee Haw. Okay? I hope you like that rendition. This guy comes out and he just brings that twangy guitar back in there, and he just had this wonderful voice with almost a yodel in it. He came out of Kentucky, went to California. He played with the punkers. This guy was in the punk clubs. The Viper, Viper Room, that might have been going on then. But he played like with X, all of that. He was part of that because, they had that country punk scene going on. And then he loved Buck Owens. And he brought in the Bakersfield sound. And he brought Buck Owens back. He gave Buck Owens a second chance in his life. And this one here, Hillbilly Deluxe, this is just... It's a wonderful Dwight Yoakam album. His stuff from the 80s through the early 90s are incredible, but I've never had a Dwight Yoakam album I have not liked. And he always wore a big hat because he didn't have... do you think if you wear... a lot of these country western guys, you never see them without the hat. It's because there's no hair on top. In Dwight Yoakam's case, that was true. But super good music, and this brought me to country music. This got me interested in country music. Suddenly, country music wasn't kind of schlocky anymore. There was some edge, there was some excitement to it. This guy did it. Super good stuff, and still probably one of my all-time favorite country music people. I really like Miranda Lambert, too. I think she makes some awesome stuff. And let's see. Gary Numan. I did not have this. Gary Numan's greatest hits. I had most all of Gary Numan's albums through the 70s. I had all of them through the 70s and through the 80s. And then I lost track. I bought a CD of him just recently, and it's outstanding. But as I thought about my Gary Numan collection, I thought, how many times did I pull out I Assassin? How many times did I pull out the Two-Boy Army? When I went to Gary Numan, I pulled out the one that Pleasure Principle that has, here in my cars, I feel safest of all. Every time. Every time, that's the one I pulled out. Now, I was interested in a few songs on the other ones, but I wasn't listening to it. So if I'm going to limit my space, do I want to put a whole bunch of space to ones that I'm not going to listen to? I will get the Pleasure Principle. I could get it on reissue. I see it. It's right at my local record store. I would like to get a very nice OG of it. For whatever reason, I have no idea why, because the other one would work, still going to sound great. But this was he had this there at my at Radio Wasteland, and how could I say no? I mean, it has all that good stuff. And I remember Gary Numan came out in college, and my younger brother bought the album. My older brother wouldn't buy a record album if you paid him money. He'd just listen to it. Mine. My younger brother, I could always talk him into things. He was always really good, easy to talk into things. And I would talk him into buying record albums. But he was buying stuff that, oh, Gary Numan, who's that? I didn't know. And he puts that on. It was okay. It grew on me. He's the one, he bought Tom Petty. Who's Tom Petty? Oh, that. Oh, yeah, I guess that's okay. He bought the Cars. Who's that? Cars, huh? I guess it's okay. My younger brother, he got it. Now he don't buy music. I mean, after college, he never bought a record album. But when we were in college, when he was with me, I would help him spend his money, and he bought all this great music that I thought was okay, and now I love. I mean, I just love. The guy had great taste. He just didn't know it. No, I didn't know it, and I should try to see if I can get those records from him. But and so I just brought in his greatest hits on here. I mean, there's quite a few of the songs that came from Pleasure Principle, which to me is the definitive Gary Numan album, the one everybody knows, but it's because it's so damn good. So I was excited. This is a 2-album set to bring back in, and nothing special there. But Gary Numan's still putting out great music, just so you know. And the final one I just picked up, just came out, brand new, Madness. This is Madness's greatest hits. There is in England, they put out a 4 CD or 4 album set. When it opens up, a little pop-up happens of this house. Isn't that fun? In the U.S., we don't have that. You have to get that from the UK. But this has, the major Our House, It Must Be Love, House of Fun, One Step Beyond, Night Boat to Cairo. I had maybe 3-4 Madness albums. I really liked Madness. But as I'm thinking, what do I really need to have? I like their hits. This has what I really like best about Madness. There's some other great songs, don't get me wrong. Great group, brought in ska, but this thing had really what I really desired. So those are what I just brought in. Bring back into my collection tunes, songs that meant a lot to me for different reasons, that just put a smile on my face, that I will pull again and again. Those are all albums when I can look, I can pull it, and I'm going to go, I want to play this. I really like this, instead of going, I don't feel like it. So kind of if you're going to limit your collection, you need to have albums that everyone you touch, you go, God, that's such a good album. Then you know you've done it right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in for a midweek. We'll see you Sunday. I hope. Please, won't you come back? Won't you? Shall you? All right? Bye.